There is a specific, dangerous breed of arrogance that blooms in the minds of men who think they are the smartest person in the room. They look at a woman who possesses a stable income, a generous spirit, and perhaps a few soft curves, and they do not see a person. They see a mark. They see a wallet wrapped in a desire for validation. What they fail to realize, usually until the very moment their entire reality collapses, is that a financially independent woman in her 30s, armed with a high-speed internet connection and a circle of fiercely loyal friends, possesses the destructive capability of a targeted drone strike. The illusion of a perfect romance is intoxicating, but the clarity of female rage is absolute. Veda had spent the last decade building a life of quiet, unshakable stability. She had a sprawling apartment in a culturally vibrant district, a corporate career that demanded sharp elbows and sharper intellect, and a comfortable margin of disposable income. At 32, she was stepping back into the dating pool with the cautious optimism of someone testing thin ice. She carried a little extra weight, a fact she wore with absolute, unapologetic confidence. Her face was striking, her wardrobe impeccable, and she never lacked for male attention. She just lacked for quality. Enter Cipriano. He slipped into her life during a muggy July evening at a rooftop mixer, smelling of crushed lime, expensive cedarwood cologne, and effortless charm. He was 2 years her junior, visiting from a Central American capital, and wielded an accent that could melt steel. For the first 3 weeks, the illusion was flawless. Cipriano was the antithesis of the emotionally stunted men Veda usually encountered. He was cuddly, hyper-attentive, and spun elaborate tales about his life back home, claiming to be an architectural consultant from a tight-knit, deeply traditional family. The chemistry between them was a physical force, cracking with static electricity whether they were sharing tapas at a crowded bar or tangled in her linen sheets. He had been upfront about one thing. He was in the country on a tourist visa, testing the waters, hoping to carve out a permanent life. Veda, pragmatic to her core, drew a firm line in the sand. She poured him a glass of Rioja one evening, looked him dead in his dark, expressive eyes, and told him she would not be his sponsor, his anchor, or his legal loophole. They could have a spectacular, fleeting summer romance. If he managed to secure his own legal footing, they could revisit the concept of a future. He smiled, kissed her knuckles, and agreed. The fourth date was supposed to be a quiet Tuesday night in. Veda was sitting at her glass-top dining table, a spreadsheet glaring back at her from her laptop, when her phone vibrated against the wood. It was Cipriano. The text thread started innocently enough, checking in on her workday, exchanging dry banter about her micromanaging boss. Then came the pivot. "I was thinking," he typed. "Since you are doing so well and my savings are getting tight with the exchange rate, maybe you could be my sugar mommy while I am here. It would be our little arrangement." Veda stared at the glowing pixels. A sharp bark of laughter escaped her throat. She assumed it was a clumsy attempt at provocative humor, a linguistic misfire. "Very funny," she replied, adding an eye-roll emoji. "Don't quit your day job." "Oh, wait." 3 gray dots danced on the screen. "I am not joking, Veda. I treat you like a queen. You have the money. It makes sense for us." The amusement drained from her body, replaced by a cold, metallic wash of insult. He wasn't asking for a loan, he was proposing a transaction. He looked at her successful, stable life and decided her role was to subsidize his existence. The sheer audacity of it snapped something fundamental inside her. Her fingers flew across the digital keyboard, abandoning all politeness. She typed a blistering paragraph, dismantling his ego piece by piece. She told him how deeply pathetic it was for a grown man to beg a woman for an allowance, how humiliating his lack of pride was, and how profoundly he had misjudged her. She hit send. 2 minutes later, his response arrived, dripping with narcissistic venom. "You are so insecure," Cipriano fired back. "It was obviously a joke to see how you would react, and you acted like a crazy person. I don't need your money. You should be grateful someone like me is even giving you the time of day." There was no apology. Just the classic, cowardly retreat of a scammer whose hand had been caught hovering over the till. Veda did not reply. Instead, she took meticulous screenshots of the entire exchange, poured herself a heavy measure of gin, and dialed Zoja. If Veda was the architect of her own life, Zoja was the demolition expert. A cybersecurity analyst with a Polish surname that no one could pronounce, and a terrifying aptitude for digital excavation. Zoja arrived at Veda's apartment 30 minutes later, clutching a bottle of Pinot Noir and 2 laptops. "Let's dissect this parasite," Zoja muttered, cracking her knuckles as she booted up her machine. They started with the basics, running reverse image searches on the photos Cipriano had texted Veda. Within 45 minutes, the slick, sophisticated architectural consultant evaporated, replaced by a sloppy, desperate digital grifter. Zoja unearthed 6 different Instagram profiles. Each one operated under a slight variation of his name: Cipriano Reyes, C.R. Guzman, Cipriano El Jefe, and each featured batch-uploaded selfies from the same 3 locations. His follower lists were heavily populated by older, wealthy-looking women from various North American cities. They moved to Facebook, navigating the labyrinth of privacy settings with predatory focus. Here, Cipriano had made a fatal, arrogant error. On an older, poorly secured profile, he had uploaded a video of himself operating heavy machinery. In the caption, he had enthusiastically tagged a high-end commercial landscaping firm located just outside Veda's city limits. He was boasting about his new grind. A tourist visa explicitly forbids any form of domestic employment. Cipriano was not just a scammer, he was a federal liability. Veda picked up her phone again. This time she messaged Tamsin. Tamsin worked in the sterile, aggressively fluorescent enforcement division of local immigration authorities. She was a woman who spoke entirely in statutes and dry sarcasm. Veda sent her the legal name, the date of birth, and the flagged landscaping company, asking if there was any way to verify the guy's background. The response came the next morning while Veda was steaming her silk blouse for work. Tamsin called, her voice devoid of its usual dry humor. "Veda, the guy is a ghost in the employment registry, obviously," Tamsin said, the sound of typing clacking in the background. "But I pulled his entry file. He listed emergency contacts." "His parents?" Veda asked, adjusting her collar in the mirror. "No," Tamsin replied, her tone dropping a freezing octave. "His wife, Nayeli, and a 3-year-old daughter. Both currently residing in his home country. He sends remittances back every month." The floor seemed to tilt. The disgust Veda felt over the sugar mommy request mutated into a profound, suffocating anger. He wasn't merely trying to exploit Veda's bank account. He was funding a secret life, betraying a woman who was likely sitting thousands of miles away, raising his child, believing her husband was overseas building a better future for them. Veda called Zoja. "Scorched earth," Veda said into the receiver. "Burn it all down." Zoja did not need to be told twice. Leveraging the unlocked Facebook friends list they had archived the night before, Zoja began compiling contact information. Phone numbers linked to WhatsApp accounts, messenger profiles of aunts, uncles, cousins, and eventually, the digital footprint of Nayeli herself. Zoja created 3 separate group chats across multiple platforms. She titled them in flawless Spanish, "The Truth About Cipriano." Veda sat beside her on the sofa, watching the screen as Zoja uploaded the payload. First went the screenshots of his dating app profile, showing his single status. Next went the photos of him and Veda at dinner, his arm wrapped intimately around her waist. Finally, the asterisk piece de resistance asterisk. The entire, unedited text conversation where he begged a foreign woman for an allowance. Zoja attached a masterfully crafted paragraph detailing exactly what Cipriano was doing in the city, exposing his infidelity, his financial parasitism, and his utter lack of shame. She hit send. The digital fallout was instantaneous. Read receipts lit up like warning flares. A cousin replied with a string of horrified voice notes. An aunt began aggressively typing. Cipriano's sister attempted to block Zoja, so Zoja simply bypassed the block and sent the dossier directly via SMS to the sister's cell phone. They made sure every single person in Cipriano's orbit, especially his wife, knew exactly how he was spending his time and his dignity. Exactly 32 minutes after the payload was delivered, Veda's phone lit up. It was a text from Cipriano. "You are a monster," it read. "You ruined my life over a joke. You are just bitter because you know a man like me would never actually settle for a fat girl like you. You have to buy love." Veda looked at the text. Her pulse remained perfectly steady. She felt nothing but the supreme, icy satisfaction of an apex predator watching its prey bleed out. She deleted the message, blocked his number, and opened her laptop. The social annihilation was complete. Now came the bureaucratic guillotine. Veda navigated to the Federal Immigration Enforcement portal. She opened a tip form and began to type. She uploaded everything. She provided his full legal name, his date of birth, his current residential address, and the exact address of the landscaping company he had tagged. She attached the video of him working. She attached screenshots of his texts where he inadvertently complained about his boss at the firm. She built a dossier so comprehensive and legally bulletproof it could have been presented at a tribunal. Usually these anonymous tips sink into a bureaucratic swamp, taking months to be assigned to a field agent if they are ever reviewed at all. But Veda had an ace. She texted the confirmation file number to Tamsin. "I'll put it on the supervisor's desk," Tamsin texted back. "Consider it expedited." 2 days later, the machinery of the state moved with terrifying efficiency. It happened at 6 in the morning. Plainclothes enforcement officers knocked on the door of the cramped, illegal sublet Cipriano shared with 4 other men. They were looking for proof of unauthorized employment. What they found was a logistical nightmare for Cipriano's boss. During the search, officers confiscated Cipriano's phone. They quickly discovered that the cellular service was not registered in his name, but in the name of a local resident. A quick audit of his roommates revealed they all possessed phones registered to that exact same individual. It was a direct, undeniable paper trail leading straight to the owner of the landscaping firm, who was systematically employing, housing, and communicating with undocumented labor. Cipriano was dragged into a sterile interrogation room. He was issued a formal caution for fraudulent activity and handed a strict, legally binding no-contact order regarding Veda. But the true devastation came when they stamped his file. Because of his home country's current diplomatic status, outright deportation was a lengthy, expensive process the government preferred to avoid for non-violent offenders. Instead, they allowed him to serve out the remaining 3 weeks of his tourist visa. However, his file received a catastrophic, permanent red flag. He was hit with a multi-year ban on re-entry. He would never step foot in the country again. If he violated the terms, or if he ever attempted to contact Veda, the ban would immediately convert into a forced, immediate deportation at his own expense. The collateral damage he caused his employer was apocalyptic. The landscaping firm received a visit from a joint task force the following week. They uncovered a massive payroll fraud scheme. The owner is currently facing tens of thousands of dollars in federal fines and the very real prospect of a multi-year prison sentence. Cipriano is currently packing his bags. His tourist visa expires in a matter of days. He will board a long, humiliating flight back to his home country where there is no architectural firm waiting for him. There is no wealthy woman waiting to pay his rent. There is only a devastated, furious wife, a family that has seen the pathetic reality of his character in high-definition screenshots, and a reputation burned down to the bedrock. He had looked at Veda and thought she was an easy mark. He thought her desire for companionship would blind her to his grift. He severely underestimated the fact that a woman who has built her own empire does not need to buy a king, and she certainly will not hesitate to execute a jester. Never mistake kindness for weakness. If you encounter someone who seems too perfect, who moves too fast, and who inevitably asks you to open your wallet to prove your affection, do not just walk away. Gather the receipts. Protect your peace, but never be afraid to salt the earth behind you. Your time, your money, and your heart are commodities far too valuable to be squandered on a fraud. Stay sharp, trust your instincts, and remember, the truth always leaves a digital footprint. If you enjoyed this story of absolute, unapologetic revenge, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and share your own red flag dating stories in the comments below. See you in the next one.